Hello, hello, and welcome to Live with Dr. Stem. I'm so excited. One of the things that I've been wanting to do is to have more and more guests coming in. So, guess who said, I will be a guest? Sabriya Charles. Hello, Sabriya.
Hi, Dr. Stim. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So happy to have you. Many of you know Sabriya. She's not a stranger at all. If you have attended or watched any of our recordings of the Bounce Back Empowerment Conference, she is the one that runs the show. So it's one thing to be the brains and the founder and have the vision and the mission. It's also another thing to be the person that takes that mission and vision and puts it now into play and make it work. And without Sabriya, I don't think we would be heading into 4 years of doing this year. We'll be doing 4 years. So she's the person that you see up front running the things, and she'll welcome you there. I mean, she's just the best. So I want to welcome you to the live show today. And guess what? This topic that we're talking about, right, comes at the right time because today is the first, the second of the month, which is just 2 days into May. So we are talking about finding your happy. And I think, you know what, if we start off the month with the mindset of finding our happy, I don't know what you're going to say, girl. So let's go. Finding your happy. What you got to say?
I love it. I love it. It's funny because a few years ago, I actually wrote a blog on the difference between happiness and joy.
Oh,
And in that blog, I wrote about how happiness is something that is consistent and ongoing. I mean, I have a friend, we talked about it, her name is Jackie, and we had a great conversation on this as well.
yeah.
But it's this idea that joy is something that's consistent, it's stable, it remains despite your circumstance. Whereas happiness, it's an emotion that we all love and enjoy, but it is a fleeting and changing emotion. We can be sad happy. We can be someone that's in a place of content happy. We can be relieved happy. There's so many types of happiness that we can feel. And so there's such value in that emotion, in that experience. But there's also value in knowing that having a culmination of happiness to kind of fit into joy gives you that consistent feeling on your day to day. And so that's kind of just off the top what comes to my mind.
So I'm thinking, right? Because then it's interesting that you put in joy and happiness. Because as we're talking about, having a new sense of, oneself as well as living post COVID, right? There's everything new that we are having to
Yeah.
experience and
Yeah.
having to really, find out, how can I find my happiness again? How can I find my joy again? How can I be happy again? Given that sense of having to find a way, a new way of finding joy and happiness, have you found out in the work that you do or in your personal life, ways that you've been able to say, okay, I really can find my happy in this way, or is there a difference?
Yeah, so when I think of, like, as I mentioned with joy, I think of joy as a culmination of lots of happies. Like, we have
Yeah.
all these happies that help us understand joy. But yes, we start at the very fundamental level of finding happiness. And so one of the things that I've been doing is this new project that I started this year. It was called the Year of the Hummingbird, and it was a project that I took on at the end of last year because I was finding myself not really doing life always in the way that like really felt aligned with me. Sometimes I felt like I was kind of just going through the motions, like I was just doing life because I was just supposed to do life, right? And so it was funny because I have a hummingbird feeder in our backyard. I love hummingbirds. I don't know what happened, but ever since I moved to Florida, I became obsessed with hummingbirds. And so I just love watching them. They come like flipping their little fast wings and they go into the bushes and I'd be so excited. And I was like, let me get a feeder so I can get more hummingbirds.
Yeah.
And so I got my feeder, made my little sugar water, and hummingbirds would come. And I was one day talking to my husband, I was like, you know, I wish I was a hummingbird. They're so free. They're so fun. They just eat sugar all day. I love sugar. They live such a free life, like a carefree life. Like they just hummingbird everywhere. And I just like I want to be a hummingbird. I was in my little pouty mood. And he was like, well, I mean, be a hummingbird. What are you gonna why don't you be a hummingbird? Like AKA like you're in your own cage. Like get yourself out of your own cage. And so I took it to heart and I was like, you're right. And so I committed this year for every month to try my year to hummingbird, every month to try something new. So every month I would find a new activity, something that I've never done before, or maybe never really, or haven't done in forever since I was a child, and just do it to rebirth and figure out what makes me happy, what makes me excited.
Yeah.
And it starts by experimenting, right? And so the month of January, I did a pottery class, which I was not that great at, but it was fun.
So that
Yes, I took a goat yoga class. Lots of poop. That's all I can say. Lots of poop. Totally not what you think, but it was fun. But yoga's really hard. I respect yogis because that's really hard.
yeah.
And then I made my own terrarium. I think for the month of March was really fun. I mean, it's growing and it's all grown above its terrarium. It's like way more. I went way better than I thought. And then I just did the rage room for the month of April. So we went and like beat up stuff, and I was like not I wasn't feeling rage, so it was like free, break stuff, do stuff. And so those were some things that I've done, and I think I have some other exciting things scheduled out. Like this month, I know that I'm getting ready to do a painting class and all kinds of things. So
So, that reminds me, for those of you, the people that don't know what you do, could you explain a little bit? Because then that goes exactly with your company, with what you do.
yeah, so I actually run a mental wellness organization, and so we work with a lot of corporations, and we really focus on helping people be able to learn different tools to help their mental health, and we really focus on experimentation at our core. So we like to teach people different tools and different well-being strategies to help them live a more full and fulfilling life. And so I'm like, I have to be what I teach. I have to practice what I preach and teach to others. And so that's why I made that intentional move to document the journey and share with others, because I've been sharing it through our blog and through our podcast, and just finding ways to help encourage others to access their fun, access their excitement in their journey.
Yeah. So one of the things, as you know, because you and I have spoken about, more empowerment programs that we can do for women, right? But as you're speaking, I'm thinking, I mean, it would be great to do adventures for women to come over to the Central Florida area, because Sabriya and her husband, they do not have a weekend where they're just not doing something fun and experiencing and experimenting in the Orlando area. So
Yeah,
for
I hope
you,
y'all didn't catch a glimpse of my. As soon as she said my husband, he's like peeking the door open. I'm like, no, but yes, speak of the man.
you did, right? Because you guys have this way of just figuring out different things to do. You talk about finding happy. I really admire, the couple that you are, because you're always going places, seeing places, So I think it'll be a great retreat, because you guys do retreats in your company. That would be awesome.
Yes, we're definitely, and that's something that we're excited to explore again when when the time is right. We're excited to expand on what we're doing and with the world. And I mean, the world is such a beautiful place to learn from. I mean, you can learn from the smallest experience. I mean, I just told this story actually before to I do virtual therapy groups, and I shared a story because we were talking about the topic of being able to just be free and be able to just be open. And so that was one of the conversations. And I shared a story about a couple years ago. My husband and I actually got a job out in Belize, and so that was like a whole thing. And so we ended up moving to another country. Like I was telling everybody we lived in the Caribbean because I didn't realize Belize was in South America, but that's another story. That's like my lack of knowledge of geography apparently. But I was so excited. We were like, oh, we're gonna move to the Caribbean. Oh, we're going out to, we're gonna be in the island life, even though Belize is not an island, but Belize has islands. And so we ended up, the story I was sharing was that we ended up going on a day trip to another island, to an island off the mainland. We took a boat to a place called Kikaker, beautiful island in Belize. And the island has no cars or anything. All it has is golf carts and bikes and little scooters, but no cars, which I thought was so cute and just so great for the environment. I was like, oh, I want to ride around on an island with only golf carts. And when we were there, everybody had like local stores. And so everything you needed, you'd have to go, find the right affinity store for it. So it was like a little village.
Yeah.
And we decided at the last minute to spend the night. We had no luggage. We had nothing.
Wow.
So we literally
Yeah.
spent all night, like kind of like that show where you had to run and buy all the things, the shop before you drop or whatever. We literally were looking at each store. Where's toothpaste? Where's toothbrushes? Where do we get undergarments? Where do we get clothes? And it was one of the most amazing experiences we ever had. And how I talk about happiness to this experience is this, like, looking back, while it was one of the most challenging things we'd ever done, it was one of the most freeing and spontaneous things, from trying to find a hotel that would take us, that actually had a reservation available, to riding that little golf cart till the wheels fell off to find all the things that we needed. So happiness often can come from the things that we push ourselves, the times that we allow ourselves to be free and just be spontaneous. I think we get so unhappy when we start to silo ourselves in the gates of our own expectations and obligations that we have to uphold. We gave up obligations that day, and it was the best thing that I ever done.
You're right. You're right. It's interesting because then when we're talking about finding happiness, for me, self care just comes, right along with it. Finding happiness is self care, because then many a time, and I was, one of those people that expected, oh, okay, I'm going to be with somebody that makes me happy, and I'm going to find somebody that can hang around with me that makes me happy, until a few years ago it dawned out on me through trainings and certifications that I was doing, and more we were talking about self-care and self-love, right? Which is why I have these programs that are coming up on self-love, and realize that if you don't give yourself ways and means of finding that happiness, of really enjoying that joy, it's really difficult for somebody else to come into your life and provide that for you, right?
You are preaching. Like, when I let that expectation go for my partner to make me happy, it changed everything for me. And I mean, I like to say our relationship is like wine. It truly has gotten better over time. It's gotten stronger. It's gotten more, beautiful. It's just been a wonderful, wonderful journey together. But what I've come to learn is that we were able to find what makes us excited. We found our own things, our own passions, our own things that kind of that keep us alive. He's not going to want to sit and do, like, I like to read a book and drink a tea. I mean, he doesn't want to do that. And it's okay. And I found that that's my thing. So I'm able to recharge in my own area and do my thing. Whereas he loves his video games, he loves his cars and stuff. I say he's the bigger spender than I am. I'm like, let's just, if it works, if it drives, we can drive it. He's like, oh, I want my nice car, so that's his happiness. And so I think that when we have our own happies, you come together and you can respect and honor each other's happies. And you also don't depend on that and expect that from one another. And that's a freeing experience.
Yes, yes, yes. Well said. And I think it's really an intentional thing that we have to do, and continuously. So when I work, as you know, I'm providing mental health services, and I'm also providing life, career, and business coaching on the side. But, in all, I'm always encouraging people to ask themselves this question: am I happy?
Yes.
And also, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? Because all those things equate to one being happy. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? How am I feeling? I wake up, like this past weekend, it was one of those weekends. Well, the last week I was, on a 7-day cruise.
Yeah, living your best life. I know. You don't got to rub it in. We know.
Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic. I mean, I had so much fun. I didn't know, because that was my first time being on the Carnival cruise, right? That the Carnival cruise is all about partying. I mean, they got music to the yin, and I love music and I love dancing. So talk about being happy. I was in my happy place because I love
Love it.
music. But then I came back, and coming back this last weekend, I did not want to get up. I didn't want to do anything. And I said, sometimes we also need to listen to our bodies, right? And just gave myself a couple hours where I would wake up, make something to eat, clear up, a few things, and then go right back to bed, watch Netflix, fall back to sleep. And then, come Sunday, I was beginning to feel, oh, okay, I'm actually feeling better. And it's easier to bring back the feelings, emotions of being happy, of talking to other people when you are rested. So finding happy is also making time to rest and relax, because this go 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 that people do, they work 24/7, 7 days a week. And many people will be like, you don't understand my life, Dr. Sam. You don't understand. I have family and I have this. I might not understand, where you are and the things that you have to do. But in order to find happiness, which is what we're talking about today, you've got to be intentional, and you've got to make time to make sure that you can relax and, give yourself time to, really find time to relax, hence the happiness and, doing the things that you love doing.
That's
Right?
it. That's it. I agree. I mean, I think that we oftentimes, I say that our mind is our biggest prison. We trap ourselves in what our set obligations and expectations are. And it's not that I get it. People have to work, people have things to get done, people have things to do. And I
Yeah.
understand that we all have our obligations, but at the same time, we have to remember and understand that we have to make time for our happiness. We, as people, we live for joy. We live for the things that excite us. We live for, like, we all are on a dopamine rush at any given time. We're all looking for that dopamine. We all crave it. Our body, for goodness sakes, thrives off of glucose. Not too much, but it needs glucose to fund and energize the world that we are engaging in. And so for me, I always try to think about, at the end of the day, if you're right, am I happy? Is what I'm going to do, is what I'm doing, will I regret it? If I found out years from now that that my life would end, would I be happy with what I did? I try really hard to think about that, because I think our mortality is we don't know, we don't know what our life has. We all can speak as if, we could be the most perfectly healthy people in the world, but that doesn't mean anything. Your mortality is out of your control. Your life can change in an instance fundamentally. Let me give you an example. I was actually watching a news report a few days ago,
Mhm.
and it was a really tough story about a family who they said this was their forever home. They found this home. It was a beautiful home, had
Mhm.
wonderful memories. Took the kids out, and the kids would go and play in the yard and the woods. It was just a paradise for them as a family.
Yeah.
And that home made them happy. And they were like, we're never moving. This is our home. Well, unfortunately, one of the children, somehow they got into the pool and they ended up not surviving. They ended up drowning and passing
Mhm.
away. It was a devastating experience for the family. And it was so fast. Like, the kid knew how to swim and everything, but I think it was the experience where sometimes kids don't know that you're not supposed to suck the water in. It's called dry drowning, where that can happen. And so the child was too young to know. And so it was devastating for the family. The family ended up leaving the house, and their version of happiness has to now be rechanged and retooled and rebuilt based on that, such a devastating experience. And so what is happy to us now may not be happy to us later, or maybe we have to retool what that means to us. So yes, through that tough story, I know that they will one day find happiness and joy again, but it's going to look different. And so for me, I've come to make peace with that too, that nothing has to be forever. My happiness can change.
That's true. That's true. I will forever not be happy with you for telling that story, because then right now, my house doesn't have a swimming pool, but I want to move into a house that has a swimming pool so bad.
Oh no.
Every time I talk about that to my sisters, they're like, "Ooh, why would you want a swimming pool? It's very dangerous." And I'm like,
Well, it's don't yeah, it's not as, of course it doesn't happen all the time, but definitely you got to have the safeties in place, and I'm sure you will have
I
a
know.
great life
So
with your
now, as
pool.
you're telling the story, I'm like, oh, they're not gonna want their grandchildren, because my sisters have grandchildren. Right? They're not gonna want to have their grandchildren come to my
Well, there's those things nowadays though where you can like cover the whole thing, and like, it might be a little more money, but there's all kinds of things now where I'm sure you can, you'll
Oh,
be able to cover it
we
up.
definitely will have to put something in place. But I think, you know what, also the other thing is, just like everything else, as we are talking about things that could be a little bit dangerous, and the things that you could enjoy, there's always a higher number of people that survive and enjoy homes that have swimming pools than those
Yes.
that have the
Yeah.
tragedies. Let's not forget that, because then sometimes I think we want to be happy and we want to do certain things. I know one of the things that I love doing is riding a motorcycle, and I know
And that,
people.
of course, there's a danger to that, right? Because most people are
That's
like,
more
ride
dangerous.
a motorcycle, like, but you're right. There's inherent risk that comes with
Yeah.
access to that joy. And more people are okay on a motorcycle than not, which is true.
What you see what I'm saying? So I'm always saying I'm gonna get me a beat, but I don't want to be the one that's riding the bike. I
You
want
want
to
to be
be
able to.
behind that man and just hold on to my baby. He does the driving.
I cannot. This only happens on a Dr. Stanley
Yeah,
interview. I love this. I
I'm
love it.
mad at him. I was like, you know what? I don't want to be the one in front, but I can be a biker, babe, in my boots and tights and leather. See, that's my happiness.
I love that. But I love that, you're willing to overcome that. You're right, because a lot of people think about traveling or doing anything. A lot of people will always say, well, this is the risk. Well, this is that. That's happening there. And yes, I will totally honor and respect the fact that there are inherent risks that come into things. There's inherent risk with anything that we do, but it's understanding that everything has a price, right? Am I happy? Would I be happy having never taken the risk, or would I be happier having taken the risk and maybe it still go wrong? And even still, it might not go as dramatically wrong where something horrible happens. Maybe it just doesn't go as you expected. For example, the pottery class was a small risk, and I didn't do a good job, and I enjoyed it, but I didn't do a good job. I mean, I had fun, but it like I was not, my hands are not steady enough where I'm really good at doing pottery, and I'm at peace with that. So it's important to understand that you can risk failure. You can, some things are a little more risky. Like, I love zip lining, right? So there is, being mindful of your safety, but at the same time, it gives me joy to do and experience these things. And everybody has their risk tolerance, right? Their risk threshold.
Oh, did I tell you about the zip lining story that I did in July of last year when I went to Jamaica? I
No.
actually did zip lining. So I get up there and I'm thinking, oh boy, what am I doing? This is a 50-something-year-old lady being up here. That's what I start thinking, right? But then here's what happened. Just like God, universe would have it. Two young girls, 18 and 21, are right in front of me and they're talking. And then I say to them, and my sisters were behind me. So I said to this young lady, have you guys done this before? And they're like, oh yeah, we do this all the time. I said, where are you from? Oh, we're from here. But in Kingston, because we were in Montego Bay. But we live in Kingston and we always come here, whenever we want to, do zip lining. I'm like, so is it scary? They're like, well, I mean, maybe the first time we did it, but no, it's actually fun. That's why we do it. So the first thing that I thought is, if an 18 and a 21-year-old
I better get my tail up here.
I'm going to have to do this, right? And then the other thing that came around is, listen, if they did it not only once, but they've done it many a time, and they're standing right up in front of you, they've never fallen, they survived. What makes you so sure that you're not going to make it and you're going to fall when they have all the safety measures? So right away, I changed just like that. I said, I'm going to do it, because then you know what? I will survive, and I'll be walking back here again one of these years to do this again, or somewhere else to do zip lining again. I had so much fun.
Love it. Yes.
And I made sure the photographers, I'm like, make sure you take pictures of me. And I'm wondering, it was like,
Get this moment. Get this moment.
So it's like that in life, where we sometimes have to talk ourselves into the things that make us happy. And you know what? Having worked with people, I work with couples and, a lot of couples in relationships. And I noticed that many have conformed to just being in this relationship and literally totally forgot who they are and what makes them happy, because they've been in these relationships for so long. And then they have, the responsibilities of being parents for so long, that when you even ask them to say, so what makes you happy? The fast answer is, to be honest, I don't even know what would make me happy right now, because then all I know is I want to make sure that my family is good, and which is fine. But then at some point, you literally need to come back into who you are again and finding those things that make you happy, that makes you, finding the joy that is
Yeah.
within, right?
Absolutely. And I think about, we do this thing where we feel like we have to work for permission to be happy. And I think that I have totally, so one of the biggest things that we did was we made a very unexpected move to the state of Florida. Originally, we lived in North Carolina. We had got to a point after COVID because we had attempted to move to Florida so many times. Things just didn't align. And so it was the midst of COVID. It was still COVID time. And we just made the decision that, after a great loss that we experienced as a family, that we are going to do the things that we want to do. So my husband, he looked at me one day, I'll never forget, we were on the stairwell in our townhome we were renting in North Carolina. He said, "We're gonna move to Florida. We're gonna just make it work." And we ended up canceling that lease. We ended up making that move, and we found ourselves an apartment sight unseen in the state of Florida and never looked back. And our quality of life, our happiness has changed. And I'm not saying that it's for everybody to come to Florida, but everybody has to find their place. But for us, we chose our joy, and we chose to find happiness. We chose to maintain it. So now almost every other weekend, we find ourselves at a theme park, at a show somewhere experiencing something, watching someone doing karaoke, meeting people at a bar that we've never met, and now becoming friends to this day, still checking in and hanging out weeks and months later. We have changed how we approach our happiness. Our happiness is a given, is a part of our lifestyle, is built into who we are as people. So, if we feel the urge and the ability to be able to go out and do something, we're going to do it, but we're not going to make it a reward because we worked hard. No, it's something we do in addition to working hard. Like, we're not going to make it something we do in spite of or because of. It's what we going to do, and we going to make it work. And so we have set boundaries on our time and what we'll do on other days. For me, there's certain days I won't meet after a certain time, and we honor that. I mean, I truly find joy in spending time doing the things we enjoy together, and I see that as priority. And so to me, that's no more important than a business meeting that I have. That's just as important as a business meeting that I might have or whatnot. Like, to me, they're both just as valuable. And so I think we have to change how we value happiness and the things that we enjoy, because yes, we need the ability and the means to have happiness. But remember, happiness isn't always at the cost. It can mean just cuddling up and have a picnic at your house. The point is, you have to value it just as much as anything else.
You're right. You're right. So because I know you're a person that thinks on your feet like I do, I'm gonna put you on on the spot. One of the things that I'm doing, a program that I'm introducing this, and I'm going to be talking about it the whole month. But the program itself is a masterclass that is starting in June. It's titled "The Gift of Self-Love: Loving Yourself Unconditionally." Do you think that at some point we all need to find a way to love ourselves conditionally? And if so, have you, dealt with, the topic of self-love, as a person that is in the business of service and providing services?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a mental health professional, I work with my therapy clients, and this is a very common discussion that comes up. I believe self-love is an ongoing process. It's something that you have to learn to do constantly every day. And the way you love yourself will change, right? Sometimes you need to give yourself acts of service. Sometimes you need to spend a little more quality time with yourself. Just like the 5 love languages for others, we need to apply those to ourselves. And so for me, I think that my journey of self-love came from healing myself through shame. I'm one of those people that I hold shame very easily. So learning that as who I can be, and having people around me to keep me out of that mind state. I have really good friends and a really good support system of family and my husband, and being able to remind, like, Sabriya, what you doing? Like, whoa. That does not just because that person may think this or feel this about you does not represent you as a person. That doesn't mean that it has to equal your truth. So it's important to look at who you surround yourself in your self-love process, but also the things that I say to myself. I've gotten into this new thing where I even teach clients as well, but to baby talk myself. I'll say, "It's okay, honey. You got this, girl." Like, I literally will think about, if I was a little girl or a little baby, like, how would I talk to me? And doing that. And I know it sounds silly, but it's such a self-soothing tool to help me get through something, and saying, "Look, go home. Come on, honey. You got this. Like, honey, look, girl, like, breathe, okay, and just and getting myself out of that mindset, that mind state, because we are our biggest judges, juries, and executioners as people. And
You're right.
so, yes,
You're
so
right.
that's my thoughts on self love.
Thank you so much. So, you know what? What I did was right before our meeting, I decided to go for a run and exercise and then run back. So if you've seen me like wiping all the sweat in it,
It's good stuff. I'm gonna get my in today too,
I
hopefully.
know.
So yes,
Because then it was lunchtime. So I thought, you know what, let me go. I, walk a little bit, run a little bit, but it's hot out there in Florida today.
it is.
Yeah.
It
So then I'm
is.
coming in, I'm like, ooh, even, and the shower didn't help because then, but
It's still muggy. It's the muggy feeling. Yes. All good. All good.
so I like the baby talk. It's not something that is silly, but it's actually something that we will be talking about in the program, in the masterclass. Because guess what? As adults, so my full name is Stembile. So there's this big Stembile that is here, but there's also that little girl Stembile that is within me, right? And that little girl's experience and my experience now can be so parallel that we have to bridge, the two. And many a time, this big one has to talk to the young one to reassure the young one that it's okay, that it's safe, that you see what I'm saying? So
Yes.
comes that baby talk. So I hadn't thought about it as baby talk because it's always self-talk, right? But you're talking to the younger you that is within you to reassure that younger you that many a time we have a lot of insecurities, a lot of fears, a lot of projection, self-sabotage, all these other good things, that come with life, it in itself. So, having said that, thank you for that. I wanted to just let everybody know that we are starting this class in June, which is the gift of self-love, learning to love yourself unconditionally. And on my website, which is right there below me, www.drstemi.com, you'll find all the information. And guess what? It's not one of those master classes that you'll just be on your own. I will be there for the whole 12 weeks, meeting with all the ladies and us having discussions like this, in a very safe environment. So I'm looking forward to that. Sabriya, it's been real, girlfriend.
Yes.
We do this again because we always have something that we talk about. So if you think about anything else, we get the Winning Wednesday where we invite guests to just, do a recording, which is 10 minutes or less on Winning Wednesday stories. Just tell us a little story of yours on, how you've been able to win, or just give advice to other women about winning stories. Sabriya did one about 2 weeks ago. So you can go on the website and go under the Winning, Wednesday winning stories. You'll be able to hear her story, over there as well. So any words of parting, my dear?
I just encourage people to remember to experiment with your happiness, figure out what works, and remember that it will change. Your happiness will evolve. The things that made you happy a year ago might be very different a year later. And that doesn't mean that something's wrong with you. It's called being human. So thank you so much for having me, Dr. Stem. It's been my honor and joy as usual. And I hope y'all have a great day.
Thank you, dear. Thank you. See you guys